It's 1978, and this is Finney and Gwen. They were brother and sister and were still in junior high, living with their dad, Terrence, in North Denver, Colorado. Their mom died tragically by taking her own life, which hit their dad hard. He turned to alcohol and started taking it out on them. Despite North Denver appearing calm, there was a kidnapping case involving kids the same age as Finney and Gwen. The kidnapper, known as the Grabber, was still on the loose. The latest victim was Bruce, a friend from school, who vanished after getting in a black van with the word abracadabra on it. In school, Finney was a really smart kid who got picked on by the school bullies, but he was lucky to have a tough friend named Robin, who was the toughest kid in school. Finney helped him with math, and they looked out for each other. One morning, Robin totally kicked the butt of the school troublemaker and scared off the bullies who were messing with Finney. Meanwhile, at the principal's office, two detectives showed up and wanted to hear from Gwen about her dream about the Grabber. The detectives wanted to know about the dream because Gwen had mentioned it to Bruce's little sibling. She talked about how the Grabber kidnapped Bruce with a black van and black balloons, and it turns out the cops found black balloons at other kidnapping sites too. Gwen swore she had never been to those places or heard about the balloons from anyone else, but she did dream about Bruce's kidnapping out of nowhere. She also mentioned that she sometimes saw things in her dreams before they happened. Just before the police left, she told them about that. Every Friday after school, Gwen would hang out at her friend's place, while Finney would head home and do his usual routine of watching horror movies until he passed out, clutching onto his trusty little Saturn V rocket flashlight. The next morning, Finney got woken up by his sister, yelling because their dad was hitting her. Turns out the cops had come to his office and were asking about Gwen's dream. Terrence was freaking out because he didn't want his daughter to end up like his wife, who killed herself after getting depressed from a dream. Somewhere else, Robin encountered the black van and nobody saw him since. It had been a week, and Finney couldn't stop worrying about Robin, who was still nowhere to be found. He was so stressed that he even asked his sister to try and find out where Robin was by dreaming about it, but it wasn't as simple as that. Gwen just hoped and prayed that God would give her a sign about where Robin might be through her dream. After Robin disappeared, Finney was an easy target for the bullies, and Gwen, who tried to help, also got attacked. Luckily, their bruises weren't too bad, and they were still able to go to school the next day. During class, when the kids had to pick their friends for group work, Finney, who was pretty shy, had a tough time finding someone to team up with. Luckily, the girl he liked agreed to be his partner. Like always, on Friday after school, Gwen crashed at her friend's place for the night. Then, when Finney was walking home by himself, he ran into the Grabber, who said he was a part-time magician. It was obvious that Finney was his next target. The guy grabbed Finney, and despite Finney trying to defend himself, he ended up getting drugged and passing out, which made it easy for the Grabber to snatch him. In short, Finney woke up in a basement room that was soundproof. There was a black rotary dial phone with the cord cut, a high window with a trellis, a hallway to the toilet, a bed, and some rolls of carpet. The Grabber was mad because Finney had hurt his arm with his rocket toy. Before leaving and locking Finney in the room, he promised that nothing bad would happen to him as long as he behaved. On the other hand, Gwen and Terrence were really surprised when they discovered that Finney had been kidnapped by the Grabber. When Finney had given up, the black telephone suddenly rang, and when he picked it up, nobody said anything on the other end. It was weird. After a few hours, Finney woke up and saw that the Grabber was already there, chilling next to the bed, staring at him with a creepy mask that only covered his mouth. The guy said he just wanted to check on Finney's condition. After the Grabber left, Finney went to sleep again. But then the phone rang again. When answered, this time there was a boy on the other end. Finney got spooked and hung up, but the phone rang again, and this time he listened to the caller. It was actually Bruce, the first person the Grabber went after. Bruce told Finney that there was a loose piece of ceramic in the hallway that could be taken out, and Finney could dig underneath it. He mentioned that he used to dig there but didn't finish before he was killed by the Grabber, so his ghost was the one reaching out to Finney. Then, the call got disconnected. That night, Gwen had a dream that Bruce got kidnapped by the Grabber, who was holding some black balloons, and his brother Finney was trying to escape from a house with a black door, a brick wall, and the number 1242 written on it. When Gwen woke up, she tried to find the house, but no luck. Meanwhile, in the basement where Finney was trapped, Finney was digging the floor that Bruce meant. He gathered the dirt and flushed it down the toilet and covered the hole in the floor with carpet. The next day, the grabber showed up with some snacks and soda, but this time he forgot to lock the door when he left. Just as Finney was about to open the door, the phone rang again, and it was the ghost of another victim, a newspaper delivery boy named Billy. He told Finney not to go upstairs because it was a trap. The grabber was waiting and would torture him with his belt until he passed out if he tried to escape. Despite this, Finney decided to risk it and opened the door. He slowly made his way up the stairs, hoping to get away from there. Luckily, he didn't quite make it to the top floor because he remembered Billy's warning and quickly went back down to eat. It turned out Billy was right because the grabber was actually waiting for Finney upstairs with a belt in hand. That night, Gwen had another dream about Billy getting kidnapped by the grabber while he was out delivering newspapers. She also saw the grabber with his mask and black balloons, which were his usual look. The next day, Billy called Finney again to tell him about a cable that he had hidden in the crack of the wall. He said it could be used to break through the trellis. Finney then searched for the cable and found it. He tried to reach the trellis, but it was too high. He then used a rolled-up carpet as a guide for the cable. Finally, he got the cable around the trellis and started to climb out, but then the trellis fell and hit him on the head. Meanwhile, Gwen told her dad about her dream with the grabber, but he brought up her late mom, who also had strong beliefs in her dreams and ended up taking her own life. Gwen expressed her love for her mom despite her tragic death and insisted that her dreams could help find Finney. After some convincing, Terrence agreed to go out that night and search for house number 142, as per Gwen's dream. Meanwhile, the two detectives were going around to people's houses, trying to find clues about the grabber. When they got to house number 1242, they met a guy named Max who lived there, and they could hear a dog barking inside. When the two entered, Max, who had been keeping tabs on the grabber's kidnapping case, told them what he had noticed. He reckoned the grabber probably had a place with a garage, and guessed where it might be. He confessed that he actually lived in a different city, and this house belonged to his brother. The detectives didn't think he was shady and told him to holler if he found anything else. Not long after the detectives took off, Max went to do his drug. It turned out that the two detectives had missed a crucial opportunity to find important info about the grabber, because turns out Finney was actually locked in the basement of that house. Finney started digging the ground under the ceramic in the hallway and covered the hole with the carpet. The grabber soon returned to the basement and tossed away Finney's food because he caught him lying about his name. He knew Finney was lying because he already knew his real name from the news about the missing child in the paper. After the grabber went upstairs and didn't lock the door again, Finney switched on his flashlight to see what was going on in the basement because it was dark. Suddenly, he spotted the ghost of another victim, Griffin, floating in the air. Griffin warned Finney that the grabber was planning to kill him to cover up his crimes because his brother Max would eventually find out. This showed that Max wasn't the grabber and had no idea his brother was the notorious serial killer the police had been searching for. Griffin said he thought he could sneak past the grabber while he was sleeping and escape that night, but he got caught and beaten to death. He said the padlock used to lock the place belonged to him, and the code was 23317, which he had written on the basement wall when he was held captive. He also said the grabber liked to mess with his victims before killing them, like purposely not locking the door so they'd try to escape and then be tortured. The reason Finney was still alive was because the spirits of the victims warned him. That night, after the grabber passed out, Finney got ready to sneak past him quietly. Thankfully, he was able to crack the padlock using Griffin's code, but then he made a sound and woke up the grabber. Finney attempted to bolt, but the grabber was quicker and caught him once more. Max heard the noise, but the grabber claimed it was just their dog. Finney was then taken back to the basement. The next day, Finney got a call from the grabber's other victim, a boy named Vance, who was a troublemaker. Meanwhile, Gwen dreamed about Vance getting arrested at a convenience store and heard Finney talking to him on the radio in a police car. The car pulled up in front of a house with the number 7741, and Vance got out, cursing at the house. From the dream, Gwen got another clue to help her find her missing brother. In the basement, Vance told Finney to take out the grabber. He also made him smash through the wall in the hallway with a toilet lid, and then unscrew 2 screws behind it with the toilet part. This would lead him to a large fridge full of meat, and he could escape by breaking down the fridge door. Luckily, the basement was soundproof, so he could make as much noise as he wanted, and no one would hear it outside. Finney started smashing the wall, and eventually he managed to get into the fridge, but it was locked from the outside. He felt really upset and started crying, but then the phone rang again, and it was Robin. Robin cheered him up and said he needed to be strong to confront the grabber. He told Finney that he had befriended Finney because he never gave up and always got back up when he was knocked down. Robin then advised Finney to fill the telephone receiver with sand and use it as a weapon to fight the grabber, and also gave him some tips on how to hit the grabber. Once the call was over, Finney stuffed the telephone receiver with sand. He also set up a trap in the hallway to the toilet, hoping that the grabber would trip and fall into the hole he had dug, with iron bars inside to break his legs. Outside in the pouring rain, Gwen was trying to find house number 7741 when she was suddenly startled by the 5 spirits of the grabber's victims. They made her stop right in front of the house. She quickly called the police and shared her dreams and discoveries. The 2 detectives hurried to house number 7741 without hesitation. At the same time, the grabber picked up a sack to bury Finney in once he was done with him. Meanwhile, Max was high on drugs and saw a map of the kidnapping case, making him realize he had been wrong about his observations. He figured out that the grabber was hiding in his own house. Max bravely went down to the basement and found Finney, but before he could act, the grabber snuck up and killed him with an axe. The grabber, in a sinister move, placed his dog right by the exit, blocking Finney's only chance of escaping. His murderous intent was clear as he prepared to eliminate Finney. However, things didn't go as planned. In a shocking turn of events, the grabber fell straight into Finney's trap, a hidden hole that he hadn't anticipated. The fall was brutal, leaving him with a broken leg and in immense pain. Seizing the moment, Finney didn't hesitate. He grabbed a telephone receiver packed with sand and delivered powerful blows to the grabber, each strike fueled by sheer survival instinct. Despite being injured and under attack, the grabber managed to grab hold of Finney, attempting to regain control of the situation. But Finney, determined, broke free from his grip. With unrelenting courage, he tore off the grabber's mask, exposing his true face. Then, in a climactic act of defiance, Finney wrapped the telephone cable around the grabber's neck and strangled him. As the grabber drew his final breaths, an eerie moment unfolded. The voices of Bruce, Billy, Griffin, Vance, and Robin, the 5 victims whose lives had been stolen, echoed through the phone. Their presence was almost tangible as they spoke, their words powerful and resolute. They declared that Finney had avenged their deaths, bringing a sense of justice to their tragic fates. The room seemed to hold its breath, marking the end of a dark chapter. After he took out the grabber, Finney grabbed some meat from the fridge and fed it to the dog so he could make a safe exit from the basement. Meanwhile, over at 7741, the cops uncovered a basement with the bodies of the grabber's 5 victims, plus one more grave that was intended for Finney. House number 1242, the one Gwen saw in her dream, was actually the complete opposite of 7741. Then Finney came out of the house and Gwen ran to give him a big hug.
Hey. Basement.
Soon after, Terrence showed up and admitted he felt guilty for being rude and not believing Gwen all this time. After taking down the grabber in a crazy situation, nobody messed with Finney anymore. The girls at school thought he was a total hero and were so impressed. Finney himself was feeling way more sure of himself and totally comfortable around his crush.